Hello YouTube, Kevin here for Superpower Broadcasting. This video is going to be a bit shorter, but I just wanted to highlight and discuss the work of one YouTuber that, as you know, I've been very much inspired by, and that is Reece of Nightmare Fuel. He has, for several years, basically been taking the flack from being basically the most prominent independent hawk on YouTube. I mean, you see genuine hawks and whatnot on establishment media, mainstream media, MSNBC, CNN, even to some extent Fox prior to Trump, where they would be uploaded onto YouTube, right? But as far as actual independent content creators go, he really is, as I've seen it, the biggest hawk that's out there. Now, maybe there are other liberal hawks or neoconservatives that are out there that have bigger following, but I haven't really seen very much of that, or at least not to the extent of the amount of time and percentage of content that he devotes to the subject. He talks a fair bit about his moral convictions with respect to intervention in the world. That is admirable. It was an absolute inspiration to me to really get started and going with this channel, because I had been meaning to make a channel for years, but there's always that hesitation that you have, right, about having unpopular views and putting them out into the social media sphere and everything. Well, Nightmare Fuel does this on a regular basis, and he often finds himself overrun with the useful idiot Kyle Kulinski supporters, or the Jimmy Dore neckbeards, or the Rand Dumber Than Jake Paulers coming and flooding his channel with dislikes and calling him a Jew cock or whatever. And, you know, just a classic anti-Semitic, paleocon, far left, blend of the worst elements of the left and the right, of course. Because they share a lot of things in common. One of them is anti-Semitism. Now, I don't believe that Reece is any percentage Jewish, as far as I understand. But of course, it doesn't matter, because it's anti-Semitic either way. It's grotesque either way. Whether he's 0% Jewish or 100% Jewish doesn't change anything in terms of the egregiousness of the insults that are levied against him in that respect. The hate and whatnot. But the isolationist will flood his channel and try to apologize and defend and for the most egregious dictators in the world. And you see some of the talking points, which I discuss on this channel, which he discusses on his channel, and which American Empire is another YouTuber that he discusses quite a bit too, which is one of the talking points that they'll often recite is and regurgitate is that, well, America's imperialist and these other countries are anti-imperialist. So basically, it doesn't matter what you do. If you conquer Crimea and annex them and incorporate them into Russia, it doesn't matter. You're still anti-imperialist because you're against America. America doesn't even have an empire. I mean, if America had an empire, like whatever, America would still be better than these other empires. But America isn't even an empire. I mean, it's just such a joke. But in the case of all of this, and for years, Reece of Nightmare Fuel has not only continued to make content, but he actively calls out the most sensitive spots, the most I would say that I would argue the least touched upon sensibilities that these people have, and vulnerabilities and Achilles' heels to some extent that they often have, because they'll use these lines such as, they'll call their opponents cucks or whatever, cuckservatives if you're a neocon, or libtard if you're a liberal or whatever, liberal hawk, evil, no good, USA. Like they basically, they have the same talking points as the communists or the fascists, whichever one, you can't really tell, because their foreign policy is identical with respect to the United States. They're all quote unquote anti-war, even though, as we know, they're perfectly fine with war if it's Syria doing the war, if it's Russia doing the war, if it's Hamas doing the war. They're cool with it. It's just if the U.S. or Israel does anything, that's when it's imperialist. That's when it's an evil, no good USA imperialism, because these people are morons. But he calls them out, and he calls them out at their sensitive points, which they try to pretend don't exist. So one of them is their subservience and their cultish worship, of these strongman dictators. So they claim to call other people cucks, but they themselves are completely iso-cucked to Putin and Assad and all these dictators out there. Kim, he calls out the libertarians and points out how they're actually very culty and anti-libertarian, how they're actually deeply ultra-conservative, and how they love authority. They love obeying authority. They love reciting their slogans as if it were scripture. In other words, they behave just like communists in that sense with their state religions. It's a joke, right? He calls out the alt-right. He calls out, the 4chaners, the neckbeards, all these people, and often does it within the context of intervention. And intervention gets under people's skins in this era of cringe, arguably more than really any other issue these days. Because it is a rare thing for somebody to be a hawk and be public about it right now, especially in independent media. Because everybody's joined the bandwagon of apologizing for dictators and being defeatist on behalf of America and playing the game of rooting for the underdog as if this were a sports game. And because Iran and Russia are down in this period, we should root for them so that they can catch up, instead of looking at the values at play on the ground and realizing that this isn't a game. There are actually villains and superheroes. And sure, it might be cliched, or it might be, boring or whatever to just root for the superheroes. When it comes to real life and the future of humanity, you have to root for the superheroes. And if the superheroes are winning, then that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing that we're stronger than Russia. It's a good thing that we're stronger than Russia. As Robert Kagan points out, nothing is inevitable. They could become stronger than us. We must not be complacent. We must not hand them an inch. And Nightmare Fuel is somebody who, as you see on his Twitter, describes himself as a war hawk. That gets under people's skin massively. Because the Russia Today crowd, the Young Turks crowd, the Rand Dumber Than Jake Paul crowd, the Ron Dumber Than Jake Paul Liberty, whatever his channel is crowd, Liberty. They love trampling on liberty if it's Assad that does it. They love it when dictators brutalize and rape and murder hundreds of thousands or millions of people to clamp down on dissent. They love that, so they suck at being libertarians. But the thing is, this whole crowd that spans the left to the right, basically, everybody who's not a centrist at this point, they are all eager to defend and apologize on behalf of these brutal despots. They all see America as the bad guys. It's so iso-cucked. It's so defeatist. It's such a slave mentality in that sense. It's so weak. I mean, imagine being fortunate enough to be born in the West and having the access to the internet and shilling for the most dark ages, troglodytic, brutalist, tribalistic despotisms in the world. Unbelievable. And of course, most of these people that do it are not actually that tough. They're not very tough people at all. If they lived in these regimes, that they get taken to the back so quickly. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, to see these, to use a right wing or, conservative talking point, to see these soy boys or whatever, the Noam Chomsky types, talk about how Kim is misunderstood or Iran is misunderstood. If they had to live there, they get the crap beaten out of them. They go to a gulag. They get taken in the back so quickly. I mean, it would only be a matter of hours before they get a bullet to the head, right? They'd be seen as bourgeois degenerates, right? With cosmopolitan sensibilities. They'd be seen as enemies of the state. They'd be seen as committing, the F word tree, right? I'm not talking about the swear word. I'm talking about the homophobic slur, right? I mean, that's the case. And yet these people, they claim to be for gay rights in America. Gay rights in Canada. They're totally fine if Putin clamps down on gay rights. They're totally fine if Hamas throws gays off of roofs, because it's Israel that's the imperialist person. In other words, everything is super cool unless you're imperialist. So if you're anti-imperialist, whatever that means, you can do anything to your people. You can literally just take, all of the families and put them in gulags for 3 generations. You can brutalize a country. You can starve a country for 70 years so that you can hold on to your Mercedes and your mansion. That's cool. You can stash $15 billion of the people's, the fruits of their labor for decades in Swiss bank accounts. That's cool. But if you're America, oh, you're an evil, no good imperialist. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And so I have all the respect in the world for Nightmare Fuel, because the amount of stamina that you have to do what he's been doing, basically to some extent by himself, to get all the hate and to keep going, it is admirable. It is awesome. And, I am glad that I am, appreciative that he's been hyping up my channel and everything. And I have every intention of doing this and continuing to do this. And it is great that we have a champion in this YouTube community, because YouTube is so filled with isolationists and so filled with isocucks and just so filled with people, whether they be the Glenn Greenwald types or the Jimmy Dore types or the Abby Martin types or the Stefan Molyneux types, the Jordan Peterson types, the Dave Rubin types. They all want to just lavish effusive praises upon despots. It's just so unfortunate to see such advanced technology be used in the service of promoting such dark age ideals and views. And Nightmare Fuel points it out when he describes the internet as a total failure. And I mean, it is basically, when it comes to the information, the dissemination of information, it has been a failure, because people are able to latch on to the easiest talking points and praise the dictators and feel cool because all their friends do the same too. But I mean, it takes a lot of work to get educated. It takes a lot of work to step outside that bubble. I will be uploading a video talking about my experience coming out as a hawk in my personal life as well as on social media. Yeah, it's not easy. So I have a lot of respect for Reece of Nightmare Fuel. And I hope that you will go and check out his channel and subscribe to him. I know he's got a lot more subscribers than I do. That's a good thing. I wish he had 1 million subscribers. I wish he had 10 million subscribers, right? So it is my hope that you will go and check out his content and give him a subscription. I don't agree with him on everything. None of us agree with everything. None of us agree with everyone on everything. We all have our differences of opinions. But on the fundamentals, he believes in universal humanity. I believe in universal humanity. He believes in universal human rights. I believe in universal human rights. He's willing to stand up and promote them and be willing to support the use of force to defend them, as am I. And that is an area where most of the people that might have agreed with us on the former 2 talking points, we lose them. And that's unfortunate. And we are trying to change that. So thank you for watching, YouTube.